Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, Jessica. So what is SOLIDWORKS PDM? What does PDM stand for? And what are some of the key capabilities and benefits of implementing a PDM system? PDM stands for Product Data Management. SOLIDWORKS is obviously used to create products. These products have parts, assemblies, and drawings. And SOLIDWORKS PDM is a file management system that organizes and controls all of the important engineering documents, not just your SOLIDWORKS parts, assemblies, and drawings, but any file. It allows sharing with any different department within the company, and it essentially controls, secures, and facilitates work in process engineering documentation, and secures everything and protects your company's IP. There is two different versions of PDM based on licensing. There's PDM Standard and PDM Professional. PDM Standard is included with all licenses of SOLIDWORKS Professional or Premium. So if you own SOLIDWORKS Standard and are interested in PDM, then you would need to upgrade to SOLIDWORKS Professional. There's also the higher end version, PDM Professional, which allows a richer experience. It allows customization. It has multi-site capabilities, allowing synchronization between different cities, different countries. It has BOM management. It has an engineering change module, a reporting module, allows for ERP integration, and also allows you to integrate electrical and mechanical design. And then now there's a third module to PDM, which is almost like Microsoft Project functionality inside of your PDM environment. But I would say more specifically, PDM in general it takes Microsoft Windows, which is the operating system that SOLIDWORKS uses, and it customizes Windows to be friendly for engineering. It changes your Windows operating system to make it aware of the intricacies and the interrelationships of SOLIDWORKS files. If you don't have PDM implemented, you're still doing PDM. You're just doing it using Windows functionality. You're trying to manually organize your files using Windows file names. You're trying to manually organize your projects using Windows folders, and you're manually trying to marshal the relationships between parts, assemblies, and drawings, and using things like pack and go for revisions. We find that for the average SOLIDWORKS user, they spend about 30 to 40% of their time manually doing PDM functions using Windows that the SOLIDWORKS PDM system automates. The second thing that the PDM system does is it completely fixes the challenge of working on a client machine and a server machine. If you're using SOLIDWORKS in a multi-user environment and you want to store your folders on the network, you are typically working on that network drive, which is very, very inefficient. SOLIDWORKS is constantly reading and writing to the actual files. So you're reading and writing over your company's local network, which has a very small bandwidth when you compare that to the internal bus of your workstation. So when you implement a PDM system, you notice that your SOLIDWORKS performance is improved just generally by 30 to 40%. Those two things, the fact that it automates Windows file management for SOLIDWORKS and that it improves overall SOLIDWORKS efficiency by 30 to 40%, really lead us to say unequivocally that every SOLIDWORKS user should be using SOLIDWORKS PDM. And PDM is, in the entire SOLIDWORKS product line, the very best product that they have. It is really a very, very well done tool. When you don't have a PDM system, what are some of the issues that you may notice? These different profitability leaks. You'll see that you're constantly afraid of losing or overwriting data. You'll see that you might be creating new parts or new designs that you've already have because you just don't have a quick and easy way to search for things. You're uncoordinated. You may release the wrong version. You may manually create work instructions. You may be ordering parts or releasing parts that are the wrong version. You really do find that your overall customer satisfaction with SOLIDWORKS in general in terms of its design functionality is very high, but your overall satisfaction of managing parts, assemblies, and drawings is very low, then it's a very good idea to check out things like implementing PDM. You may have heard the term PDM and PLM before. PDM stands for Product Data Management, PLM stands for Product Lifecycle Management, and how do they relate? When we're talking about PDM is a subset of PLM, and it's really talking about the work in progress engineering workflow. We don't get involved with inventory management. We don't get involved on the operations side. What we do is we very seamlessly link engineering with operations, allowing collaborative engineering, engineering change management, and easy product reuse. So to sum up, SOLIDWORKS PDM is by far the best. There's other PDM solutions for SOLIDWORKS, but as the years go by, they become less and less and less prevalent. So if you want to implement PDM systems, SOLIDWORKS PDM is essentially a no-brainer. It's important to realize as well that SOLIDWORKS PDM is a Windows file management product for any file and allows multi-CAD integration. So we have SOLIDWORKS PDM add-ins for Microsoft Office. We have SOLIDWORKS PDM add-ins for AutoCAD, for DraftSite, but also for other 3D CAD systems like Solid Edge, Pro Engineer, and Inventor. Users range from single users, but it's a fully scalable solution, and we have customers that have global enterprises running thousands of users on a SOLIDWORKS PDM implementation. It has some very nice aspects to it. One of the biggest reasons why companies don't implement a PDM system is they're afraid of the implementation creep. They're afraid of projects, PDM, any kind of enterprise implementation that never seems to end. We have a very high success rate in implementing PDM because we have a proven methodology approach. So there's a very short implementation timeline. We implement SOLIDWORKS PDM standard in typically 2 or 3 days. We implement SOLIDWORKS PDM Professional in 5 or more days. And so you can implement it with a very high degree of confidence that the project is going to be successful. It's an inclusive out-of-the-box solution. It's not very difficult to buy. You only pay for concurrent logins, so it comes with everything that you need to implement it. So let's have a look at the product. So I'm going to give things back to Jessica, and then I think Austin is going to walk us through exactly what PDM looks like and show us some examples of how it facilitates design reuse, and it makes it much easier to use Windows and revision control.
Thanks, Chris. All right, let's just switch over here. So just to add on to what Chris has said, I'm going to try to focus on what I feel is four common issues that people have with file management outside of any file management issue. Duplicate files and file names, multiple people working on the same file at the same time, spending inordinate amounts of time communicating designs across the company. What I mean by like that is people from the shop floor constantly bugging the designers, asking for like what is this design? How does this work? What's this dimension? I need clarification, so on and so forth. And then finally, an inordinate amount of times dealing with the revision control, version control, and reproducing deliverables. So what does this look like? Well, as Chris mentioned, it's Windows. It's Windows Explorer. So everybody who's using PDM has this Windows Explorer interface available to them, in addition to the SOLIDWORKS interface, which I'm going to show momentarily. And when you add files to the vault, it's actually quite simple. It's how you would add anything else to a folder. Save as, drag and drop, copy and paste. It works the same way. So I have an assembly here, just a small assembly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the drag and drop method, and I'm going to copy it into a project here. And again, just drag and drop. People should be used to this. And one of the first things that we see here is that we have duplicate checking. So this particular system, not only is it telling me that I've got a duplicate, but it actually shows me where that duplicate is. Now I only have a single file here, but if you're copying a large assembly into the vault, you could get a complete list of duplicates here. And if you need to deal with it one at a time, you can actually export this list and deal with said duplicates. I'm just going to close this for now because I want to show you what it looks like on the PDM side of things. So here's the thing that I copied in, and before I go any further, I actually have to check it into the vault. So this is what Chris was talking about in terms of the client side versus the server side. All I've done is I've copied it into the client environment, and I have to actually check it into the server so that everybody has access to it. And you will notice once again here that I have this pin that I can't get into the system. That's because it's not unique. And from the duplicate, I knew that this pin is a library item that's already in the vault. So I need to deal with that. And one of the cool tools that PDM has is I have the ability to quickly deal with duplicates and fix references on the fly. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to delete this pin because I know that's a duplicate. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to the universal joint, the top level, and I'm just going to use this cool update references function. And there it is, there is this pin. Now I've deleted the one that it brought in, so that's why it says file not found. And I'm just going to click this find button, go to my library, and it finds the one that was already in the system. I click update, and there I go. What I've done is I've replaced the reference with another file that was already in the vault. No fuss, no muss. And now I can check the entire assembly in. And you can see this pin, which is the one from the library. It's already in the library, so that's the file that I don't need to check in. So I'm going to go ahead and check in. And again, I have some other information that I have to provide. I can actually make it so that people have to enter in a comment to let people know what the situation is when I place stuff in and I do check out and check in and so on and so forth. Now these are new files, so I'm just going to put in new files. And there we go. And that's as simple as that. Again, I could go into SOLIDWORKS and I could do a save as and add files that way. Now there is another way that I could add files, which is a PDM Pro function, and that's the ability to create templates and auto number files in the system. So if I just go new PDM, I've created a template here called part. And what it's doing here is it's going to a template that's already stored in the vault. It's opening it up, and it's giving me what's called a data card where I can mandatory information or optional information. And you can see that it's already labeled it with a serial numbering system that was defined in the system. So I'm just going to call this test part. Say it's a purchase part, comes from Acme Corporation. Click create file, and boof, there we go. So with respect to, we talked about duplicate naming. Well, if you set up the serializing system in PDM Professional, you can avoid duplicates just by letting the system do all that for you. All right, so that's one simple example of how this interface and how the system can help manage and maintain files and reduce data entry error. So moving forward, I have a file here. And it's a simple clip. It comes from an assembly, a flashlight assembly. And I want to work on this file, already open. And you can see I've got this interface here. So now I'm talking about the SOLIDWORKS interface that's similar to what I just showed you in Windows Explorer. And one of the things that I may want to do is like, okay, I want to work on this clip, but I'm not sure if it's being used by other assemblies. I don't want to modify it and mistakenly modify other assemblies that aren't supposed to be modified. So one of the cool tools that I have in this interface is where used. And this will tell me exactly where that file is being used in the hierarchy of things. So I can see that this part is being used by this sub-assembly, which is being used by this main assembly, which is ultimately in a drawing. You'll also note that it also shows configuration. So if that clip was shown in multiple configurations, it would be listed here. This tells me it's only being used by one assembly, the assembly that I want to work on, and everything's hunky-dory. So I'm just going to do something silly. I'm just maybe going to change the material of this thing just to keep the ball rolling. And I'm going to click OK. And once it does its save thing, then I get the save as window. Well, why didn't it let me work? Well, that's because I haven't checked out the file. And I can see that here in this column, checked out by. This same column is over here. In order to work on the file, I actually have to check it out. And the checkout process, what it does is it puts a local copy on my machine and it makes it editable only to me. It means everybody else can see that file, but nobody else can touch it until I'm done making those changes and I check the file back into the system. Again, this is something that would really make sure that there's no conflicts in your design process. So I've checked it out. I'm going to, let's change it to something weird here. I'm going to click save. I also get some visual cues to let me know that the file has changed, similar to the little asterisk there in SOLIDWORKS. There it is there. I'm good to go. I check it in. Again, if I just try to check it in, nope, can't do that, so I have to put a comment in here. So I'm going to say add material. And there it is there. Okay, so that's the simple checkout and check-in process. And now that I've created a new version, version 2, that version becomes available to everybody else. So again, if this is, say, a library item or one of your common parts that's used across multiple assemblies, then that becomes available to use in other assemblies. Even while I have it checked out, I was working on version 2, it basically means that version 1 is available to everybody who, if they want to use it on their particular assemblies. But again, I'm eliminating that potential conflict with different versions. Okay, now let's look at the upper level assembly for this. I'm just going to open up the base. And again, you're going to get some extra visual cues here. So I'm actually going to not check it out. I'm just going to open it up read only. And one of the things that you're going to see from this interface that we have here, over here onto the side, is I'm now seeing that I've got some conflicts or some warnings, let's say. So this system is letting me know that this assembly is now referencing an older version of the file. And so again, I'm getting this little extra sort of visual reminder that something needs to be done in this assembly. Maybe you're attached to an older version, you need to do something. So again, okay, so I'm going to check it out. And in this case, all I'm going to do is a simple rebuild. So Control R, rebuild, and I'll do a forced rebuild, Control Q, save it. And there we go. Now I've updated my assembly and my warnings have gone away. And again, I can just check it in and it will say rebuild, again, proper comment. And again, I've been able to update the assembly and make sure things are done systematically. I haven't forgotten anything because of those visual cues that the system gives me. Right? I am going to move to a different part now in a different project. There we go here. So I've already set up a system where I have a file here. It's already been released as revision A. But I want to create a new revision. So we have this thing called states here. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So what I need to do is I need to edit this. We're going to do a revision B. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this file. And when I open up the drawing, one of the things that you'll notice that is I get this window saying, oh, hey, there's some references here. Do you want to edit those files as well? So the answer is yes, yes, I do. So I'm going to select that second file. And maybe the design process here is that I released it as Rev A, but the client wants to go back to an older version. So what I can do here is I can review all the older versions, either from this interface or from SOLIDWORKS. Let's open that up there. Actually, let's do it from here. So what I can do is I can go into the history of this file, and you can see a complete history of everything that was done in this system. So for this drawing, it went through a series of check-ins and whatnot. Oh, sorry, it finally opened. Okay, let's actually do it here. All right, so I'm gonna go to my drawing here, or my part file here, because this is where the actual changes were made. So here it is here, and in revision A, I know that I added some holes and I changed the material and I did a few other things, but I need to go back to an older version. Well, I have this get version here, and I can see all the different versions that were created, basically all the checkout and check-ins before it actually got released Rev A. And because of those comments that I was ending earlier, I get a little quick hit information to let me know what was done at what particular time. Well, I know I need to go back to the version that didn't have the holes added to it, but maybe the material was. So I'm just going to select, what I'm going to do is I'm doing a get of that version. And what it's going to do is it's going to ask me to get it, which is kind of the same as a checkout, only it's a read-only copy. However, in this particular case, I already have the file checked out. It's basically saying, do you want to overwrite your current version with the older version? And the answer is yes. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to avoid having to do all that work undoing the changes made before it hit Rev A. And again, I get a little flag that says, oh, hey, you're currently looking at an older version, but this is what I want. So what I'm going to do is the one that I checked out, version 8, by overwriting it with version 2, saving it, and then checking it in, I have now created a new version using an old version, which greatly increased productivity because I didn't have to undo all those changes. I didn't have to work to undo all those changes. Now I can just go back into the drawing here. It's not checked out. Ooh, better check it out. And again, just do a simple rebuild, save it, and check it back in. Okay. All right, there we go. Nope, still going. Perfect. Rebuild. Apologies for my machine being a little bit slow. All right, so I'm done. Now what I want to do is I want to send this file to the manager for review and potentially approval. So I have this thing called a workflow here. So in my add-in, the designer would then say submit for approval. And they could say, please check, and then maybe this was as per ECO 12345, click OK. And what's happened is it's now gone off to the manager to seek approval, okay? So let me just close that. Now the manager's not gonna have SOLIDWORKS, he's gonna have this interface, the Windows Explorer interface. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna log off Mr. Designer here, and I'm now going to log in, I'll log in the proper way, or at least the way that I would as the manager. I'm gonna log in to the default project as Mr. Manager. Oop, sorry, lowercase. There we go. All right, and let me shut all this stuff down because again, Master Manager doesn't have SOLIDWORKS. All right, so I'm now in the system, and again, apologies for my machine so slow, but the system can be set up so that the manager gets a notification of that transition from work in progress to pending approval. The notification is available both in standard and professional. However, in professional, you can actually hook it into your existing email system, be it Outlook or Gmail or something like that. So I'm just going to go into my file here, which was 01, I believe. Nope, sorry, 02. Oh, I don't know if people heard that, but I just got a little notification window, and I don't know if you can see this, but my icon changed, and this is the notification that typically would be received by the manager. Okay, so it's a hyperlink. They could click on this. I already actually have it open on my screen. So they would look into it here. And now let's talk a little bit more about this interface. This interface is essentially one-stop information. You can see here that I've got a preview window. And if I click on this preview, I actually have it set up to be a static image, but I can actually click on it and it actually presents the information in eDrawings, which is built into the system. At this point, I could run measurements, I could zoom, view, and look at all that particular information. In addition to it, I have what's called a data card. The data card houses all the metadata information against the files. This metadata information might be system generated from PDM, or it might be custom property information from the file itself. So all that information that's currently being managed in SOLIDWORKS files can be linked inside PDM. It's also bidirectional in terms of data entry. I could check out this file and add a description, because maybe the free description was added from this data card here if I really wanted to. All right, so Mr. Manager, he then looks at this file and then he makes the decision. Okay, yep, either I like it, or he makes the decision, no, it requires more editing. Again, maybe he forgot the description or something like that. For the sake of keeping things quick, I'm going to say everything looks good, and I'm going to say, well, very simple, approved. All right. And once that's done, and once the state's going through, you will notice that the revision on the file changed from A to B. All right, let's look at this in the history. And again, you have a complete history of what was done to this file. You can see that a whole bunch of work was done in revision A, and then it was issued as revision A, and then we went back into editing. And you can see where Mr. Designer made some comments in here where he said he reverted it to version 2, and then he sent it off to the manager to get looked at. There were some system updates to the file, and then ultimately approved and issued as Rev B. Talking about some automation here, I'm just going to open this up in SOLIDWORKS, and what you will see is that the title block on the for the drawing of that particular file was modified accordingly. And if I zoom in here, oh, sorry, that's the old version. I should have closed this down before I open it up again. My apologies. It was remembering in the RAM. There we go. Okay. You'll notice here that Rev B was automatically applied to the title block, as well as the drawn by and the approved by. Okay, so again, this kind of talks to the automation and the productivity and efficiency side of the system, in that you can automate certain actions that usually take up a lot of manual effort and so on and so forth. The last thing that I do want to show you here with respect to the history or the automation side of it is you'll notice that I have two folders in here, PDF and step file. And if I click on this, you will see that a PDF was automatically created of this file. And if I go into the step, a step file was automatically created. Again, this is automation that is a function of PDM Professional to, again, greatly automate, greatly increase productivity of your design cycle so that you don't have to spend the time making all these additional deliverable files, say, again, step file for CNC machine and so on and so forth. So that's also part of the workflow, is that you can automate the production of these deliverables. A couple of other points about this interface that are very handy. Again, let me just go back to my flashlight here. Again, this would be for the folks, it can be for the designers, but it can also be for the managers. It could be for, say, the procurement people if they need to look at some stuff. We have bill of materials. We have different types of bill of materials. We have an internal or computed bill of materials, or I can simply look at the bill of materials that exists on the drawing. And I can also compare versions of bill of materials right from this interface, as well as export the information. I've already talked about the Where Used button. So in addition to being available on the SOLIDWORKS side, it's also available on the Vault View side. This is what's called the Vault View. And then conversely, I have a Contains tab as well. So I can see exactly what this particular drawing or what this particular assembly contains as well. And it also contains detailed information on the version of that particular file. Again, it's a quick hit information to make sure that either the manager is looking at the correct version or that the designer is looking at the correct version. We also have very powerful searching tools. So if I just type in test for, say, the description, and then click go, I get an instantaneous result list of everything that meets my particular criteria. This search capability is so completely integrated and I'm trying to think of the word. It contains everything, whether it's the metadata. I could search on who's got files checked out. I can search on what files are approved, what files are work in progress. That would be under editing. And it's all instantaneous. And when I say instantaneous, I don't just mean instantaneous within the office itself. PDM Professional has the additional capability of replication across multiple sites, and the ability to search and glean that information across multiple sites instantaneously, as I just showed you, just gives it that extra oomph that makes a company work better, especially large companies with multiple sites. All right. So that's pretty much it for my live demo, but I did want to just point out a couple of other things on the professional side that I may not have pointed out before. There's the branching emerging function. This is actually new to 2018. I actually just did a what's new demo earlier this morning. So that presentation could be handed out so you can see some details on the branching emerging. This is a good thing for prototyping, ECN design management, like say you have a new change that needs to be made, but you want to go through a couple of iterations without affecting the original design, and then you can do that. Or working with third-party contractors. If you give them access to a specific folder that only they have permissions to and they can't see the rest of the vault, you can copy or branch a portion of your design there, they can work on it, and then you can merge everything back into the original design, and everything's maintained in history and versions and so on and so forth. I mentioned replication, I mentioned templates, and that's not just for files either. I could actually create whole new project structures with the template. Actually, that's something I forgot to do, and that's something I can just quickly show you guys. So I'm going to close this, and I'm going to say I need to create a new project. So here's a template for a project, new project. You can see, again, the serial numbering has automatically created that project. I'm just going to call it test project and click OK. And now if I go into projects, I have a brand new project. Again, projects have metadata and a folder structure has been created. So again, PDM Professional with the capability of doing templates should greatly increase productivity. There's a web-based interface. Think of a thin client, or if your company takes advantage of Citrix and DMZs and stuff like that, you can have clients use that to log into your Vault system. I mentioned the notifications can link to your existing email systems. It can also link to domain login systems, like your Windows domain. It also comes with some reporting that PDM Standard doesn't have. It also has greater export capabilities, such as doing an XML export to push data, like bill of materials data, to your ERP system if you've got one. And then just generally speaking, you've got enhanced workflow bomb and search functionality that's not available in Standard. So there really is a lot more stuff in Professional than there is in Standard, although in recent years they have ported some of that pro functionality back into Standard. With that being said, I'm just going to skip that slide. I do have a comparison matrix. So this will be made available to the people on the webinar. You can get a detailed list of all the functions that are available in PDM Standard versus PDM Professional. Hopefully I have demonstrated what is in both, and then sort of the extra stuff that's what's in Professional. And that's what I've got.